Good afternoon, grade 8s. I hope you are doing well. My apologies for not being with you today. In the last lesson, we looked at and started looking at the general ledger. If I can ask all of you to turn to page 20 in your notepacks, where I'll be working through activity 1 with you. Okay. The ledger becomes a hell of a lot easier once we start working through and completing ledgers, as opposed to me speaking the whole time. So please have your pages open and work through your notes whilst I work through the video with you. We're going to start off first and foremost. The way you'd need to look and begin every general ledger is by entering in the opening balances. So if you have a look, we are working with Doggy Parlour. Okay, that's the business we are working for. We are their bookkeepers and accountants. We are working for the month of July 2023, and they give us this information over here. And I'm going to be working with a bit of colors, but in essence, they've told us that Capital has an opening balance of 28,500. Now, if you remember last lesson, AE Oil, our best friend, assists us in knowing where to put in our opening balances. Okay, so remember, we always enter in our opening balances on the side where the plus sign is, with drawings being the exception. So drawings will go on the negative side on owner's equity. So if we enter in the first balance in blue of that 28,500, Capital increases owner's equity, so we would use the credit side. So on the 1st of July, we would have our balance that has been brought down from the previous month, and our amount there is 28,500. That is the balance that they give us over here. Sorry, let me just do that circle nicely. That is our balance that they give us over there. Now, again, Capital is owner's equity account, increasing on the credit side. Sorry. There's a couple of things that we need to remember. In the balance sheet section, we work with balances. And remember that it's only assets, owner's equity, and liabilities that take place over there. So we start off every single ledger account by entering in the opening balances given to us. And again, sorry, excuse me, let me just do some straight lines over here. We enter in these balances that are given to us in this block over here. Every single general ledger account normally has an opening balance at the start of the month. So now, if we run through and we go through every single account to enter in the balances, we'll go to owner's equity minus, which is drawings, and on the July the 1st, so you always have your month, then your date, your balance. Okay, the B/D stands for brought down. This balance has been brought down from the previous month, and the 4,000 there represents the 4,000 up until that point that the owner has pulled out for their own personal use. Okay. We then need to go to vehicles. According to AE Oil, vehicles is an asset increasing on the debit side, so we'll enter in our balance on the debit side. We will have our balance on July the 1st, our balance brought down from the previous month, okay, and the balance that they give us there for vehicles is 13,000 Rand. Okay, we then move to bank, our final asset. All right, and our opening balance that they give us for bank was 7,440. Now remember, again, bank is a asset, so on July the 1st, we've got our balance brought down. And this is 7,440. That means that we've got 7,440 Rand in our bank account. That is our bank balance currently. We then get to the nominal accounts section of the general ledger. Now, the only difference here is in the nominal accounts section, we use totals instead of balances. And we only ever use one side at a time. And it's incomes or expenses. Now, our incomes, again, we follow the plus side. So we'll use the credit side. We enter in our July the 1st. We have now a total instead of a balance. It's been brought down from the previous month. And our total for current income was 3,750. Remember, if we take a look up here, your balances and totals are represented in this red block. Okay, we then, after current income, go to some of our expenses. The first being stationery. So we go to stationery. Now, obviously, I mentioned we use one side only in the nominal account section. So the debit side for any incomes won't be used. Okay? If we think about stationery, which is an expense, wages, also an expense, material costs, an expense, water and electricity, an expense, telephone, an expense, and lastly, commission income and income, that will show us which sides of the ledger we can use. Remember, we always work with the plus side, so you can get rid of the credit side for stationery, for wages, for material costs, for water and electricity, for telephone, and then commission income being an income, we would use the credit side so we can get rid of the debit side. Now, you don't have to go in and draw these funny lines that I've done. I just do it as a visual to assist you guys in making sure that you use the correct side of the general ledger. We then get to stationery, which has a total brought down on the first. All right, and they give us 600. If you scroll back up, I'm not going to do it, but you can turn back up to the top. Wages on July the 1st will have a total of 900, also brought down from the previous month. Material costs will be 2,250, also brought down from the previous month. Water and electricity on July the 1st, our total brought down from each month, or from the previous month rather, and we're working with 4,000 for water and electricity. For telephone, they tell us it was 2,300, so on July the 1st, we've got our total brought down of 2,300. And lastly, commission income. July the 1st, our total brought down, and they tell us it's 1,940 Rand. So that is how we start off every single general ledger account. We start off with our opening balances or totals, which is always given to you in information, and I'll highlight it or circle it in a different color this time. Our balances and totals are always given to us in our block over here. Now, once you enter in your balances and totals, remember this has a lot to do with our T accounts. So, for each one of these, or starting off at least, if we were to receive capital, we would have capital in the CRJ. Remember, the business receives capital from the business's owner. So if we go to our CRJ, you'll see that we've got a capital transaction on the 4th of July. Now, what's important to remember before we go into that is if an account like bank has its own column, we will use the last day of the month. The same for current income when we work in those general ledger accounts. When we work in capital, as it appears in sundry, we'll use the 4th, the date that took place on. The same thing with our transaction on the 21st for commission income. We would also use the date it took place on. Bank, in the CRJ, we call total receipts. That is all the money that we received. And we use the total of the bank column. The same thing when we get to current income, we will use the total, 4,990. But I'll work through those with you. We get to bank in the CPJ, where we call it total payments. Just the opposite. Okay, it's got its own column, so we can use the last day of the month, along with stationery and wages. But then, for our drawings, on the 12th from Mr. Poodle, our water and electricity on the 21st, our telephone on the 27th, our vehicle on the 29th, and 30th, material costs. Each of these sundry accounts, the date that the transaction took place on, as I've circled, will be important. Total payments, we'll take our total of our bank column. Stationery, we take the total. Wages, the total of each column. So now, if we look at the capital general ledger account, capital does not have its own column as we established earlier. It takes place on the 4th. So the date that we need to enter in is the 4th. Now, you always need to refer back to our double entry principle. If we had 2 T's for capital, or this particular transaction, we would have 2. We'd have bank, and we would have capital. Now, in our general ledger, which is an advanced T account, the contra account for capital is bank. So this detail, or this column that I've just filled in, is for the contra account. At this stage, except for the bank account, the contra account in every single ledger account should almost always be bank. We then get the folio column, which is where we get the information from, and we found our capital transaction in the CRJ, and the amount on the 4th was 16,000 Rand. So what we need to do is add in our 16,000 Rand. Now what we end up doing is all we have to do is total up our columns so that we have a balance for the next month to start off our ledger account in August. So our total here should be 44,500 for capital. Then we get to drawings. Now we need to ask ourselves, where would drawings take place? Money's going out of the business, so it should be the CPJ. So if we all go up to the CPJ and have a look, we've got drawings here of 2,000 Rand on the 12th. Now because it doesn't have its own column, we'll use the 12th. Remember, if we were to draw 2 T's for this account, we'd have bank and we would have drawings. Now again, because we're in the drawings ledger account, our contra account there is bank, and the amount there was 2,000. Now, in the capital account, we totaled up and we had 44,500. Again, here we need to total up, so we get 6,000. But you'll see that there's an extra row that has been given. Now, if that same extra row was given in the capital account, what you would then need to do is for the following month, excuse me for that, for the following month, we would then need to say, after July comes August, and on the 1st of August, our balance that we have gotten or brought down from the previous month is now 6,000 rand. So if they give you this row that I've highlighted, wrong row, my apologies, if they give you this row, you will need to show your balance for the previous, or from the previous month. Okay, now if we start working through this, let's ask ourselves the question, in which journal would we find a transaction to do with vehicles? Let's think about vehicles. We normally buy a vehicle or pay off a vehicle, so money will be going out. If we go up to our CPJ and have a look, vehicles takes place on the 29th. So the date that we use is the 29th. Okay, again, if we were to draw two T's for vehicles, we would have vehicles and our contra account, which is always bank. We'd have bank as our detail. And the amount that we pay for our vehicle on the 29th was 18,000 Rand. What do we need to do? We total it up, which should give us 31,000 Rand. Now bank. Bank is an interesting one. We look at bank to determine how much money we have left in our bank accounts. How does bank our asset increase? It increases in the CRJ when we receive money, and it decreases in the CPJ when we pay money. Now, what we need to do is go look at the total of the bank balance in the CRJ. Bank has its own column, so we can use the last day of the month. I wrote up there earlier that our bank in the CRJ is now our total receipts, which is our contra account. From the CRJ, we then have on July, remember it's the last day of the month, bank has its own column in the CPJ. That is what we call total payments. From the CPJ. And if we go up and have a look and enter in those totals, we've got 25,740 for our total receipts, 25,740. And then we've got 29,325 for our total payments. Now what we need to do, and the purpose of why we do this bank general ledger account, is to determine how much money we have left in our bank account after we have spent it. So if we didn't have any payments, the total of our balance and our total receipts would be our bank balance. But we do have payments of 29,325. Now what's important is that we make sure that we look at which side is bigger. So in my two orange blocks, on the debit side is the total of the balance and total receipts greater than the total of our credit side. So what we need to do is add up our balance and our total receipts of 7,440 plus 25,740, which will leave us 33,180 Rand in our bank if we didn't have any payments. However, we do have 33,180 Rand in our bank account and 29,325 Rand worth of payments. Now, some of you may remember me speaking about a seesaw, something that balances and needs to be the same on both sides. Both of our sides for our general ledger need to be the same. So if we take 33,180, all the money we had, and we subtract our payments of 29,325, it will leave us with 3,855 Rand. That is the balance that we need to carry down to the next month. Now, when I talk about that seesaw and both sides being equal, the total of those two highlighted figures, our balance and total receipts, equal 33,180 Rand. The total of our total payments and our balance that we need to carry down also equal 33,180. The way to finish off this account would be to carry down. So if our balance carried down is on the credit side, we need to bring it down at the beginning of the next month. So August comes next, the 1st, and it's our balance that has been brought down from the previous month of 3,855 Rand. This can be a tricky one, however, we will do more of these and it will get better and better. Lastly, the nominal account section. I will be doing 3 of these accounts with you. Thereafter, you will need to complete the remainder for our homework. Now, when we look at current income is money into the business, so we need to go to our CRJ for that information. If we look in the CRJ, current income has its own column, and we need to take the total of that column of 4,990. The reason why we take the total of the column and not each individual is that we need to summarize what has happened so that we don't have 17 different entries in our current income column. Remember, if it has its own column, we take the last day of the month. And if we were to draw 2 T's, we would have one for current income. And what is always the contra account? It is bank. So we would need to stick bank in our contra account spot. The only thing we need to do to end off this account is to total it up. So we add up our total of 3,750 plus our amount of 4,990, leaving us with 8,740 Rand. What you can then do is on the 1st of the month, August the 1st, remember we're in the nominal account section, so we've got our total. It's been brought down from the previous month, and it's 8,740. Okay, now we get to our stationery. For stationery, which is an expense, remember we pay for expenses in the CPJ, so you can stick that into your folio column. If we go up to stationery and have a look, stationery also has its own column and a total of 900. So what we would need to do is show our total of, firstly, on the 31st, our contra account bank, and our total there was 900. What we need to do then is add them up, and we get 1,500. At the end of the month, on August the 1st, we will have our total brought down from the previous month, and that should be 1,500. Alrighty. The last one I will do with you guys is wages. If we go to our journal, we'll also see that wages has its own column, which was the 31st. So we can use the last day of the month, the 31st. Bank is going to be our contra account as always from the CPJ. And the total of that wages column was 2,100. What we need to do is we add in that 2,100. And then lastly, all we need to do is add up those two to make it 3,000. Are we done there? Nope. At the end of every month and the beginning of the next month, we've got our total brought down. And our total brought down there was 3,000. Okay. For material costs, water and electricity, telephone, and commission income, please could you guys complete that for homework? Pay careful attention to the dates, please, as these don't have columns. So make sure you go up to your journals and you pay careful attention to the date column for these accounts, as they do not have any columns, or they do not have their own columns rather. They all take place in the sundry accounts. Grade 8, that is us done for today. Please make sure that you go through this video working with your notes and that you engage with it. We will see you next week. Have a lovely weekend. Cheers.